If you take me back to that 20 years ago, going down to Atlantic City, like, what were you thinking? Is that a good strategy that startup folks should have?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to come here and tell the Under Armour story on behalf of all of my teammates at Under Armour. South by Southwest is a big deal, and it's one that I take great honor in when people welcome me to a place in my line of business, which is effectively the underwear business where we started. The number of grown men who walk up to me in the men's room, pulling their drawers out of their pants and saying, "Hey, Under Armour guy," and this town has been very accommodating, so thank you for that. But it's been an amazing story. We've had an incredible run. It's been built, on the backs of our teammates and the people that we have in our company. But yeah, I mean, I know there's so many entrepreneurs in the room too. And if I can do anything today, hopefully share just some of the lessons of whether you're coming here today to listen to me, maybe give you that one nugget of advice or counsel that says, that's the key, that's the thing that I need in order to take my business to the next level. I don't know if that exists. And I can tell you there'll be moments where you'll be tested. And I've lived through many of those moments of tests, and as Bob described coming in here, is that there was a practice in the early days, and I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but where like being my own accountant, measuring and having one of those big blue checkbooks, this is before things were truly digitized, and seeing how much cash was left in the checking account that hadn't cleared the checks, and determining how much dollars that was at 1:59 p.m. on Friday, withdrawing the exact amount, save less $10 in the checking account, driving to Atlantic City, playing in a blackjack tournament, and driving home while doubling the $2,000 that I really needed $6,000. And it was a great strategy that worked for me, I think, 2 times, and the third time I actually got caught. And you know this when you're doing things like filling your car up with gas before you leave for Atlantic City so you have enough gas to get home. But the one thing I hadn't accounted for was the tolls. And when you're really broke is like when you're sitting at a toll booth, and I mean broke is like, I don't have any money really, but broke is like there's no change in my car, like enough to pay a toll. So when the nice lady comes out, takes your license, walks around, takes your license plate, that's probably one of the low points in life basically of Under Armour. But that was, I think, the last time I cried as a grown man, was sitting in the front seat of my car going, I'm totally broke, and sent me to my mother's house for dinner. And she's a wonderful lady, but not a great cook. And as she asked me, it was like, how's the business, how are things going? I was always a big believer in anything positive you tell someone, they're going to tell 3 people. Anything negative, they're going to tell 13 people. So I'd say, everything's great, Mom, don't worry about a thing, and not knowing where literally I was going to get gas to fill, or money to fill up my car with gas the next time. And I went to go check the local P.O. box at which we got our first check from Georgia Tech to the tune of $7,000 came in. And it was like the last time I probably could say that I truly bet the entire company on one event, but I guarantee the entrepreneurs in this room will feel that, of having had that moment of sitting in a toll booth, crying from embarrassment about the woman asking you why you can't pay a $2 toll, as well as finding a way that hopefully the ebbs and flows of business come back and make it work out. So
there are, is that better? There are a lot of questions or approaches that founders have vision for their company, right? A specific vision for their company. When you think back to those early days, did you envision the company getting to the scale that it's at now? Like, how far ahead were you looking?
I think I like to answer that because I get, people, do you pinch yourself? Is it incredible? Do you love it? And again, Under Armour, it's an amazing, powerful brand. And what I say is that I never had a perfect vision of what it would look like, but more importantly, I got up every day and I never believed that it couldn't happen. I think so many of us are limited with the fact of like what you can be or what you can't be, of defining yourself as to how good you can be. And I think that's one thing with Under Armour where we really, we're still defining the company that we're going to be. I didn't say I want to go compete and I want to be a great sporting goods brand. I woke up and I said, I want to build the world's greatest t-shirt for football players. And I went out and I made it. And I'd heard about this place called the Garment District in New York City and got in my car and drove up there and parked at 34th and 7th Ave and walked around and found a fabric store and made my first prototype on an old manufacturer down on 11th Avenue in New York City. And from that, I made the world's greatest football undershirt. And of the original 7 prototypes I passed out to my teammates at the University of Maryland, one of them was also a baseball player. Another one of them was also a lacrosse player. And it wasn't this idea of I'm going to begin truly with the end in mind, but I'm going to build the best product that I can. And all of a sudden I realized the baseball players liked it, the lacrosse players liked it, the girlfriends of the lacrosse players liked it, and then the volleyball players started liking it. And it wasn't that it was this one product that began as a singular product idea that my consumer pulled me to all these other places that gave us the privilege to be able to sell beyond other things. And it took us from being a product-based company to being an idea. Under Armour was a garment. It was a product that no one had ever addressed what athletes wore beneath their equipment. And as an entrepreneur or beneath their uniform, I couldn't believe that no one had ever addressed this. Innovation in our field had always been limited to the equipment that you wore or the footwear. No one had ever thought about your apparel being a short-sleeve cotton t-shirt in the summer or a long-sleeve cotton t-shirt in the winter. There was no alternative to that prior to Under Armour. I think that was our great innovation and has allowed us this entryway to dream beyond being a great sporting goods company to saying, why can't we be the next great global brand, beyond even an athletic brand?
There's this spirit to Under Armour that's kind of like an underdog. It seems like it was there from the beginning, from when, even for you, from when you first walked on to the University of Maryland as a football player and made the team and eventually, became a scholarship athlete. It infused Under Armour. Now that you're big, are you still an underdog? Is it important to be an underdog? What does that mean?
Yeah. I mean,
at $4 billion, you can still be an underdog?
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes the big guy. I mean, everybody likes to root for the underdog. But we recognize that with it, we've got size and we've got scale. But I think that we also have this opportunity that we are. I mean, our largest competitor still, 3 years ago, they were 12 times our size. 2 years ago, they were 10 times our size. Last year, they were 8 times our size. This year, they'll be between 6 and 7 times our size. So the scale is growing in the right direction for the good guys. But I still think that we've got opportunity to turn, we have to act like a small company. And we're in a difficult position right now. Under Armour's at this, big little company, little big company. Because we're kind of a big company, but we're not. And there's a danger to that, where you start employing process and systems and all these things that you want as a big company, but you recognize the strength of being small and being nimble, that you don't want to lose it. And so that's an interesting, I think, time for any company that's gone through, our ambition that we set at our recent Investor Day. As you said, we've had 23 consecutive quarters of 20+% revenue growth. This is our 10th year as a public company, where we celebrated, we averaged a 30% top line CAGR. And I want to make a real important point. We also averaged a 30% bottom line CAGR, meaning we were profitable as well, and we have been since 1998. And all along that way, we haven't really defined the company we're going to be. At our Investor Day, we said from a $4 billion outlook this year, to be a $7.5 billion company by 2018. So effectively coming close to doubling our business in just the next 3 years. And that's what a 26, 27% CAGR will do for you. So we've got this ambition to continue to grow, because we have big competitors in our size and they have big checkbooks, and it's expensive to play in the field and swim in the waters where we swim.
You around your offices, around the Under Armour offices, there are these whiteboards that have these sayings that you put up or you create. And there's one of them that I know you've talked about this idea that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yes.
And I'm curious what that means, because there's a lot of discussion about strategy and what it takes for a business to succeed. But what does that mean that culture eats strategy?
It's like culture is everything. And people used to say that to me, like starting my company. And I'd say like, yeah, I got it. I'd nod my head, but I didn't really know what it meant. Like, I didn't really get it. And I think that like understanding what culture means, like for us, culture is the brand. Like the brand. Like no matter what we do, everything comes back to like relying on the brand. And the brand is something that must be protected. And the brand is something that must be curated. And it wasn't something where you set out with this firm culture, but it was the attitude that I believe it begins with the founder, begins with the founders, my partner Kip, my partner Ryan, my brother Scott, this group of core individuals that really got our company going. And there was this attitude, on the whiteboards, as you describe them, they say things like overpromise and deliver, dictate the tempo, walk with a purpose. Oh, no, we already slept yesterday. Today we work. Like it's this attitude of like, we're going to find a way. And that find a way mentality is something that is incredibly important at Under Armour. And there's been time and time again where we've been tested with that of like, do you have the Do you have the stuff to really get it to the next level? And look, I can empathize, I think, with anybody in this audience, because I remember my first 10 years in business as a company as well. Like, you've got this idea or this thought of, like, how come nobody's talking about our company yet? And when I talk about Under Armour, we're celebrating our 20th year in business. And the fact of the matter is, nobody really cared about the first 10. And so we're one of those constantly like, you guys are, one of those overnight success stories after, 16 years in business, and people started noticing our company. And we hope to continue to, wow people and make them, give them things that they never thought that they needed.
Now, I've heard, I've asked and I've heard different things from people about defining the company. Some people say Under Armour is an apparel company. Some people say it's a fitness company. You've said sometimes it's a performance company. Yeah. And I've heard that it's a technology company. And I do want to get to connected fitness in a moment. But for you, how do you define Under Armour? Are you one of those things? Is performance the word? What do you define? What scale or what industry, what position Under Armour is?
I do like being defined as a performance company. I think it's completely unlimiting. It's an untethered approach to the way that we see the ability to define our company, and more importantly, the ability for our company to be. I mean, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, would I be here in Austin speaking at South by Southwest, what was our digital strategy? I mean, we're the same company that applied for, cheaper office rents at this place in Baltimore, which was this sort of technology incubator. And when asked if, we were really a tech company in 1998, if we could move into this new office, my reaction was, we've got a website, does that count? And they weren't very hospitable to us. And today, brands ebb and flow. Like, the evolution of your brand, it must be fluid. And it's got to be curated by, a group of founders, a founder. Sometimes it's your executive team, sometimes it's your board of directors, depending on the way you're set up and structured. But I think Under Armour is a brand that, what any great brand is like great aggregators. Like, you like to go to Whole Foods, right? And everybody goes, if you're gonna go shopping, you'll go to Whole Foods, and you'll go, I like to go to Whole Foods because they always have, the freshest local produce. They always have, great local milks. They always have, the best pastas from Sicily. They always have, like, these things curated. We're trusting the fact that their buyers are scouring the earth for the best ideas on the planet, and they're putting them all under one roof. You go to Europe and you go to you go to the butcher and get meat. You go to the dairy and you get milk. You go to, and you get butter. To have the ability to put those together. When I think of our brand, every great brand is like a great story. And every great story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we like to say that, like, every product we build is like a chapter. Every athlete we sign, every interaction we have with the consumer is like a chapter in the book of our story. And our job is to make sure that chapter 1 makes sense to chapter 2 to chapter 3. And our job is to curate that story. And so whether we go from making tight-fitting t-shirts in 1996 to selling a health box and the next great wearable devices that will help track and give you the dashboard for your daily health in 2016, I really see that as an evolution. And what brought us into this entire world where we are now was that the consumer, I believe, asked us to go here. And at times, it was our job to anticipate the question that the consumer wanted to ask us. And I think that's what, a performance brand is meant to be. It's not limiting to being apparel. It's not limiting to being footwear. It's limiting that anytime our logo does show up on something, it better be the best. Like, it just has to be the best. Like, that is the job that we have, is that if you see it's got Under Armour, it's like, our brand is the one where, like, a little kid puts it on in the morning, and little boy, little girl, and they believe it's like a superpower. They might have thought they were this good, but with Under Armour, they're this good. They might have thought they weren't good enough to, like, go out for the team, let alone make the team, but this time they were good enough to, like, make the team and start. They might have thought they just weren't cool enough standing in the lunch room in the cafeteria with their tray in their hand going, like, I don't know if I'm cool enough to sit at the cool kid table, but today I've got something special. Today I'm wearing Under Armour. And that, to me, is something that we can unlock that it shouldn't just be the feeling, but it's built into every single product that we make, every single product that we have.
All right, so let me ask you about the chapter of connected fitness. a couple of years ago, you bought an Austin-based company. You acquired a company called MapMyFitness. It's here in Austin. You've done 2 further acquisitions in this area. $710 million invested. You now have 160 million plus users giving or sharing data in some ways. And earlier this year, as you mentioned, you launched this health box, which includes these fabulous wristbands. Right? And a heart monitor and a scale, along with an app called Record that captures health data all together. So why is this? Why go through all this? Why is this chapter? Why is this the next chapter for Under Armour?
So Bob, it's the world's first system. You know, what we saw as we looked at our digital strategy, I think every company is going through this right now, trying to define themselves for their consumer, for their market. Are you either A, a legacy company, are you old and established, or B, are you the digital company? We call it a math house. I believe the companies that will make it are the companies that are somehow using and found a way to curate and find data and use it to their advantage to help them with the decisions that they're making. Like, our belief is that data is effectively the new oil. You think it's a coincidence that Google is the company that you probably would bet on to win, or Amazon, when they credit 40% of their revenue to what they call their purchasing history, is that they know that you bought a tube of toothpaste 7 weeks ago, it takes 8 weeks to go through a tube of toothpaste, and they send you an email and says, you'd like us to send you a new tube of toothpaste. It's not meant to be invasive, but it's meant to be problem solving, because you don't want to think, you just want to click yes, of course send me a new tube of toothpaste. The ability for companies to have that, I think the companies that will win are the companies that are using math as the thing which is informing the decisions that they make. Humans will always make the decision, but it's important that we have the best information possible to do that. You know, 4 years ago, December of 2013, is when we made the acquisition of MapMyFitness here in Austin, Texas, led by a great entrepreneur named Robin Thurston, and Austin Ventures was their venture partner behind them. And the idea wasn't that we didn't have the right answer. It's that we as a company, we were like a sporting goods company making sweats and sneakers and stuff. And it was going, and everybody's saying, you know, what's your digital strategy? What's your digital strategy? And we played this song out with a heart rate strap. And it started with a biometric shirt that would read your heart rate, and it had accelerometry and all this cool stuff in it. And then in order to get the data, the shirt had to get smaller and tighter, and it wasn't commercial, and then it turned into a heart rate strap. By the end of 2011, and we were doing this with the NFL Combine, at their event in every February, March, in the NFL brings in the top 300 athletes and measures them. We're thinking, it's crazy, there's still 32 people standing at the 40-yard line with a stopwatch and going click. And you're going, there must be a better way to read this data. And it wasn't that we didn't have the right answer, it's that we didn't even know how to ask the right question. And so with MapMy, we recognized that the idea would be, I don't think it's in the hardware. Because by the end of our 6-year odyssey of trying to make this hardware, it's like we were dealing with 7 different companies from 5 different countries, and it was like owners. And we said, I believe the value is actually in the community. And so we started by, you know, getting someone who could help translate, being an athlete, what Under Armour truly was, into how we were going to walk into digital. And that's where Robin was that great translator for our company. And Robin came in as a former professional cyclist, whose career ended abruptly in the back of a pace car going through the back windshield at 40 miles an hour. So not by his own choice. He looks great now, don't worry about a thing. They had the perfect plastic surgeon on duty. Show him yourself, Robin. But Robin really helped us formulate the question. And what we realized when we bought MapMyFitness, which is basically, anyone who doesn't know, it's a GPS tracking app. I'm gonna go for a jog or a bike ride. I hit start on my app, I track myself where I'm going. And it comes back, and we found out we went from 20 million registered users at the end of 13 to over 32 million just 12 months later. And it was like, wow, the size of community is a really powerful thing. And we have all these people telling us about their runs. We have people that are signing up for our gear tracker, which is, you know, I'm loading in the fact that I just put on a brand new pair of Under Armour Speedform Geminis, and I want you to help me track my footwear. And it's not only, we're tracking the gear that they're buying or they're wearing or they're using, but it's also, it's more importantly, it's giving us data about when does that shoe break down, or how can we anticipate the needs of the athlete. And so once we had MapMyFitness, we said, this would be interesting if we had a further purview of what this community would look like, the European view, which is where we bought Endomondo, and a great entrepreneur named Meta Luki and her team based in Copenhagen. And then the third leg of the stool for us was nutrition. And MyFitnessPal, led by two great entrepreneurs in Mike and Albert Lee, based in San Francisco, we were able to coordinate this community that has given us the world's largest digital health and connected fitness community in the world, with more than 160 million registered users, more than nearly 130,000 downloads happening every single day. So we're adding roughly 1 million people to the platform every 8 days right now. And we think the scale of the way we're approaching this idea of our new system, of understanding the 4 quadrants, as we call them, of sleep, activity, fitness, and nutrition, mixed with your body weight and mixed with this registration of how do you feel, is a pretty powerful tool that takes the idea of biometric measurement truly to a different level.
I mean, you've said that we know more about our cars than we know about our bodies, and you know, it is an insight that's often true for us. I guess one of my questions is, one of the adages that you have on those walls is, don't forget to sell shirts. Like, what do you do with this data? You know, do you make money on these bands that you're selling? I mean, I know you've just started, but how does it fuel the business?
Right. So as you say, all these things that we have, of all the whiteboards in my office, the one thing written in red ink in the center of my whiteboards is always consistent, and it simply says, don't forget to sell shirts and shoes, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, that's what we do. Like, our job as a brand, like, we put you on the roller coaster, you go up, you do the loop-de-loop, you get off, we run you through the gift shop. Like, don't forget to sell shirts and shoes. Like, that's how we stay in business. And you think about the idea of what does this mean, is to us, or to me, again, I started saying it earlier, but the job or the idea for any brand, our responsibility, is to give you things that you never knew that you needed. And then once you have them, have you wonder how you ever lived without them. And if I could just posit one question to the audience, and just saying, how many people in here know how many days they were sick last year? And like 10 of you will raise your hand and go, I didn't get sick last year. It's like, yeah, you did. You just went to work anyway. But imagine if you knew exactly when that was. And imagine, I mean, how do you not know how many days you were sick? Think about your most important asset. You could have $400 in a checking account, and the bank would be able to send you reams and reams of data of what happened with that data, what the interest rate, how it fluxed throughout the year. But if you go to see your doctor every 12, 18, 24 months, and you walk in the room, and the first thing the doctor says is, the nurse outside takes your blood pressure and your weight, and then he walks in, he reads a chart that he wrote down the last time you were there, 12, 18, or 24 months. And he says, how do you feel? I'm like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I feel okay, I guess. But like, how do we not have any data about that? Because if you ask me, I tell you I get sick every time it goes from summer into fall, and every time again it goes from winter back into spring. And I'm going through that right now, and it's like this 2-week, like just takedown. And I'm like, imagine if I knew when I got sick. Imagine if I could help predict the time when I was going to get sick, and I could start loading up on things like vitamin C or zinc and prevent it from happening in the first place. Like, the idea that we have, where we're taking the data from our consumers that are giving us this idea and this vision of, the 4 quadrants, as we say, plus your weight, and this incredibly important thing, it just says, how do you feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, today, how do you feel? And how many times have you rated yourself, a 9 or a 10? And more importantly, wouldn't you love to know the like activity that led to you rating yourself a 9 or a 10 versus the negative things that led to you rating yourself a 5 or a 6? But imagine what that world could look like, because the fact that I believe in 10 years' time, people will look back and go, can you imagine we used to walk around and never had any idea, like, when we got sick? And I think it's absolutely crazy. And so we are in this business, and we've assembled the largest digital community in the world. And again, more importantly, when we bought when we made the first acquisition with MapMyFitness, it was as much about sporting goods being a problem, and that my industry was effectively an industry of C students. We weren't attracting enough smart people. And our company of, call it 3-4 years ago, we had maybe 8,000 people in our company. We had less than 20 engineers in our company. And so the acquisition of MapMyFitness was, of course, a great talent base of a great product, great service, great entrepreneurs, but it was more about, the engineers. Today we have, where we had less than 60 people across our connected fitness and digital teams collectively. Today we have over 500, close to 350 app developers and engineers in the company. So truly transforming us from just being a true shirts and shoes business to being a company that is using data to help enrich the shirts and shoes that we're ultimately making to help enrich our consumers' lives.
So I hate to raise the N word, but a couple of years ago, Nike made a splash here at South by Southwest with their Fuel Band. And
How'd that work out?
They recently shut it down. Yeah. They shut it down, and I guess that's my question. So what makes your effort, they shut it down because Apple launched the Apple Watch, and they didn't think they could win that competition. So what makes you feel like your effort is different than the experience of the competition?
Well, I think we do believe, the first thing, to mention about the companies that we acquire to bring into this system, this network that we now have, is that they're all completely agnostic. And so the UA Record platform, as it works across the 4 apps that we now have, MapMyFitness, Endo, and MyFitnessPal, as well as UA Record, they're all completely agnostic. And so we encourage you, we think that we have the best dashboard for your health. Like, I think that we should have a dashboard for our health.
So if I have an Apple Watch, I can use the UA Record dashboard if I want.
Absolutely, but it doesn't track your sleep because you have to charge it at night when you do it. So we believe that if you want to use a Fitbit wearable and a Garmin heart rate strap and a Withings scale, go for it. It's incredibly complex and difficult. And what we found was the problem with wearables before, I believe, the system that we put into play was that wearables would tell you how many steps you took and how much you slept. But if you look at that chart on Fitbit, it tells you, here's how many steps you took, and here's how much you slept. You're going, there's got to be, like, what is that doing to make my life better? Like, where does it all come together? Like, how are you helping empower me? And so what we did is first we teamed up with HTC to actually make the hardware for us, and because we believe they could do a better job of it, we also believe there's always going to be a better mousetrap. And so we wanted someone who could be expert in consumer electronics to do that for us. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to represent the point of view and the perspective of the athlete. And we want to say these would be the tools that would be great for the athlete. And to do that, it would have to be a combined system. It would have to be a wearable, of course, to track your steps as well as your sleep, but also a heart rate strap when you exercise. What did you do when you exercise? How hard did you exercise? What was your high heart rate? What was your low heart rate? And then the data of just your basic weight. Step on your weight and give us your weight and give us your body mass index. And the data that we're collecting today is something that I think I get so excited about because even we are in the first inning of this game. Like, we are just getting going. And the ones where, imagine, so right now, of our 160 plus million people, in my age group, there's 4.6 million males. And I can tell you empirically that the average male that's between 40 and 45 years old, they weigh 192.3 pounds. They average 6 hours and 28 minutes of sleep. The average run when a consumer goes on a run is 3.1 miles. You may assume, I guess the average run's about 3 miles. The average run for a 40 to 45-year-old male it's 4.16 miles. And our last year alone, we had 2 billion workouts logged into our database across our 4 apps, and we had 8 billion foods logged. It's the largest database of food ever assembled in the history of mankind. And we can tell you eating trends. We can tell you there's a walking trend happening in Australia. And we can tell you that, again, for the 40 to 45, it's a 4.116 mile run that the average 43-year-old does. And I'm looking at that and saying, I want to know, not only the people that are just like me at 43, but imagine if I log 5 years of this data. And imagine and someone else is doing it 5 years in front of me. And 3 years from now, they had a heart attack. And not only were they the 4.6 million that just happened to share my sex and my age, but they also, if I could run and I could query, and this is where we partner with IBM's Watson to help us on the back end to help take all this data and do something proactive with it. But imagine if I could tell you that, show me all the people in my data. There's 4.6 million total. Show me all the people in my database, in my world ecosystem that are within 5% of my height, 5% of my body weight, have my same matching blood type, and a similar cholesterol and a similar blood pressure. And imagine if I'm then watching 24,000 people, and just think the #1 obesity hospital in the country is actually at the University of Colorado, and they have less than 10,000 people in their sample size. And imagine the sheer numbers with people volunteering that data for the right reasons, for us to do the best things with that data, to put people in the best position to help make their lives better. And that's why we think the system that we have with Under Armour Health Box, in partnership with HTC, in partnership with IBM, assembling some of the biggest and best brands in the world to truly give a dashboard for your health that is something which is compelling and can truly help maybe save your life someday.
It's a long way from T-shirts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, yes.
All right, let me switch gears a little bit. A bunch of the success at Under Armour is because of the way you've aligned with athletes, and you've been able to align with athletes who are just about to break out. Jordan Spieth, Steph Curry, Cam Newton. You must have learned something from that trip to Atlantic City because you've made a lot of good bets.
Yes.
How do you choose? How do you decide what defines an Under Armour athlete in that relationship?
I believe, first of all, our athletes choose us. I think if you look for a common denominator, and we're incredibly proud of the list of athletes that we have right now, we have the 4 major U.S. sports leagues, football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. We have all 4 reigning MVPs in Cam Newton, Stephen Curry, Bryce Harper, and Carey Price in the NHL, as well as the #1 golfer in the world in Jordan Spieth. And I can tell you we have a fraction of the resources and stable of athletes that our competitors do. And the one thing you'll notice, I think, across our host of athletes is they're just really good people. And it's easy to say, I wouldn't say, don't go just hire the nice guy. I don't know, they may stink. But you better hire, the nice guy or the nice gal. And, what's impressive, I think, about the list that we're, bragging about and talking about is the list of athletes that don't even make it. From Misty Copeland, who was on the cover of, Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people on the planet. And, there's a cool story that I love to tell about, one of my whiteboard sayings. It says, map versus terrain. And, if you're in here, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got private equity, you've got investors, and you lay them out, and here's our strategy for the year. What I find for any great company is the ability to be experts at terrain. So one of our directors is this guy named Admiral Eric Olson, and he's the first 4-star Admiral Navy SEAL in the United States Navy. And Admiral Olson, he's a very soft-spoken, very deliberate man. And when I ask him questions about things, and I remember I was asking this question, I was he never really gives you a direct answer. He always says things I was asking Admiral, do you think we should go for it? Do you think we should do this or not? And he answers with no one's ever won a horse race by yelling, whoa. I'm kind of got it. So map versus terrain is I was Admiral, I'm trying to decide, do we go left, do we go right, do we go up or down to this? And again, good directors never give you opinions. Good directors give you perspective. So his perspective to me was a story. He just used to say, in the SEALs, my men would come to me and ask me very similar questions. And my answer to them was always pretty consistent. He said, men, you'll find times that when you're going to be out there, that the map and the terrain will differ. And when they do, I suggest you go with the terrain. And you're kind of I gotcha. So every one of, I think, our athlete stories is not too different from that, is that, look, we went out and we played in many of the sweepstakes for going for high-pitched, high-priced athletes. We even tried taking ourselves out of our own alignment of going back to saying, what are the fundamental elements of our brand, the brand? What is that DNA, that underdog, that fighter spirit? And is it Stephen Curry, who wasn't even recruited from the same college where his father played collegiately at Virginia Tech, who got passed over and went to a small Division I school, but who made it in the NBA and frankly was signed with another sneaker company who allowed his contract to get up? And people believed that he wasn't. They didn't give him as much credit as he deserved, and he wanted it. I mean, I sat and I did this panel with Charles Barkley recently, and we were talking about this. We were talking about the difference of data, using data to inform the things that decisions that you make. And again, now we have all this 8 billion foods, 2 billion workouts helping inform the decisions we're making. And you're but basketball goes back to measuring data from foul shooting percentage. And at the end of the day, Charles is I hear you on data, but a dog is a dog. And I'm kind of you can't argue with a dog is a dog. And so finding that that winning spirit, what makes Jordan Spieth at 19 years old, the kind of athlete that we want to not only sign, but then double down with for a new 10-year contract before he'd won his first major. And, we're very proud of many of these stories. And hopefully, it's been an amazing year for us and we can keep it up. But, this is what our team is supposed to do. We're supposed to be the best in the world. And that, these other companies, I think that they've, they let some get by, and that turned out to be pretty okay for us. So we're fine with that.
So, you are taking a risk, though. I mean, you never know that these guys are going to break out this way. You have to be comfortable even if they don't, right?
I mean, believe me, I could sell you some athletes cheap right now too. So that would be, we've been upside down in some trades as well. But look, I think the ones that really matter, we've done pretty well, and hopefully that keeps up. And more importantly, when you have Tom Brady weighing in on, what do you think of Cam Newton? And you start using our network, and we're using Stefan to help us, recruit our additional athletes. We're asking Lindsay, what do you think of, how does this fit the brand? Like the culture of the brand, it's a completely dynamic thing. There's nothing static about a brand. The vision that we had, again, I wasn't thinking about a connected fitness strategy 10 years ago, but that has ebbed and flowed and evolved with us as we've gone and as we've grown.
So one of the athletes that we didn't talk about yet is Michael Phelps. You guys recently released a video of a 90-second new video or ad or whatever for him, and maybe we can show it here. It's 90 seconds, not too long, but I think you guys will enjoy it, and then we can talk about it.
Pretty awesome, actually. So you tell me what you think.
It's the last goodbye, I swear. I have no regrets, for the past is behind me. Tomorrow reminds me just where. Can't quite see the end. How can I rely on my heart if I break it with my own two hands? I heard all you said, don't say anything. It's the last goodbye, I swear.
Pretty killer though, right?
That's a good reaction
the
there.
hair on the neck thing, like standing up a little bit.
I saw another video online where you first showed this to Michael, and he teared up watching it at your offices. So why Michael? Why this video? Where did this come from?
Map and terrain. I think that our job as a brand is to lead. Is that the greatest, we like to say, the greatest merchants in the world aren't the ones predicting what's cool. We're the ones that are dictating what's cool. And I think people would probably expect us to come out with a Stephen Curry commercial, and I can promise you we will do that as well. But I think this zig, when everyone else is zagging, is pretty exciting about maybe one of the most famous athletes in the world. That Michael, I'm not sure what people think about him or not, but he's got. Prior to this, is that he's a Baltimore guy, and that has nothing to do with, I mean, it has a little bit to do with it. Like, we're a Baltimore company. Mike's my guy. I don't think his story had been told. I think it's so unfair. I mean, if you imagine, I don't know if he's selected or he was chosen into figuring out he was the greatest swimmer of all time. And that basically then, sentence may be a harsh word, but sentences you to getting in 60-degree water every single morning and staring at a black line for 8 hours a day. Like, it's a hard life, and I don't think people really recognize or appreciate what he's gone through. And for someone who, really took fame at 16 years old, winning his first gold medals, to, watching him grow up in front of all of our eyes over the last 15 years, and you're saying, has his story really been told? And his story is so incredibly Under Armour. And so, this was a conversation with Michael about, if we're going to put you out there with this story, we want this to be your best Olympics ever. And, to Michael's credit, and, tells you what kind of a competitor and, frankly, the kind of leader that you'll see from him is, he's someone who said, I can't wait for this Olympics to know that I gave it everything that I had for this one Olympics. And it doesn't mean he didn't train before, but where you do everything exactly right. And I think that's why he's incredibly mature, and that comes across in, a very powerful message. And Team USA will be the beneficiaries of that.
All right. Well, thank you. You mentioned he's a Baltimore guy. And guys, for those of you who want to start getting questions ready, I want to remind you again the hashtag is Ask Kevin Plank, and we're going to go to your questions in just a second. Your headquarters is in Baltimore. Michael's a Baltimore guy. You're Baltimore people. You have about 2,000 people in Baltimore. There have been some tough times in Baltimore in the past year. You've personally invested, if I have this right, $100 million in Baltimore real estate, a property development that's underway, including an expanded Under Armour headquarters. Why make that investment? What is your connection to Baltimore, and why do it that way?
Well, it's home, number one. I mean, I'm in a unique position, as a founder that I can do things for the company that another CEO maybe wouldn't be able to do. And look, I love Under Armour. Like, I love my company. Like, I think any entrepreneur here, start there. Do you love what you do? Like, do you really love your business? Like, I love Under Armour. And everything that I do outside of Under Armour, it must have a tangential benefit that comes back to the company some way, somehow. And for me, like, we're in this unique position that, number one, like somebody said to me, last year we had really some terrible things happen, and this isn't a Baltimore story. This is an American story that's played out in Ferguson, and then it played out in front of all of us on CNN in Baltimore. And like anything, it seems like there's two stories, there's two Baltimores at some point. And I believe we have great things, but I think we have issues that we all need to work with. And someone said to me, what are you doing about it, and what's your goal and obligation? I'm thinking about it. If I have an obligation, like the first obligation I have is to stay in business. First obligation I have, the best thing that I can do is continue to hire 1,000 people this year, at great salaries and great benefits and all those other things that happen. But we have this opportunity, like our obligation begins with our consumer first and foremost. Like that little kid, that little boy, that little girl, when they put on our brand, like it's real. Secondly, we have an obligation, I think, to our customers, like the Dick's Sporting Goods, the Foot Lockers, to do a great job for them and make sure our product is selling through. Thirdly, we have a great obligation to our teammates, those at Under Armour, and providing great place for them to work, an inspiring place to be a part of. Fourthly, we have an obligation to our shareholders and doing a great job for them. And fifth, I think it's for any company, we have an obligation to our community. We have this ability that as I'm sitting here looking at growth, we talk about growth from, when we gave our Investor Day outlook, we were targeting $3.75 billion, and we said we'll do in 2015, and we said we'll do $7.5 billion by 2018. The ability for a city like Baltimore, when the Baltimore Ravens played the Buffalo Bills, 2 or 3 years ago, the article the Wall Street Journal wrote was the only two American cities with NFL teams that don't have a Fortune 500 company. And all I could think was putting that on my shoulders and just thinking to myself, like, just wait. Like, wait do you see what we do? And that ability for us to be a great steward for our community is a massive opportunity. And I look and I say, at any given time today, and this is where, I could jump on a soapbox and start talking about things like jobs in America, making footwear here. We've got a new 70,000 square foot innovation center that will have domestic manufacturing be opening in just the next 3 or 4 months, in downtown Baltimore. But we need jobs. Like, our cities need jobs. And Under Armour at any given time today, to do roughly $5 billion in revenues, our current projection for the year, we'll have about 250 to 275,000 people making stuff for us around the world. And I'm thinking, if we are gonna blow this out, and I'm telling you, I think we can close to double in just the next 3 years, that means we'll be creating close to 250,000 jobs outside of America. And this isn't just an American story, because I think it's local for local. It should be the same thing in Brazil, and the same thing in Asia, and the same thing in Europe. But imagine if we could crack the code about how to get more local, and how to do it where actually it's the communities that we're selling things to that are actually the ones that are benefiting from making it and having the jobs. And I think that should be the challenge, because in my industry, I get frustrated when people talk about how innovative our competitors are. And I look and I say, you talk about an innovative company? Innovation is that 20 years ago, the innovation that sits inside of this phone that fits in my back pocket would have taken a Greyhound bus-sized mainframe computer, and it wouldn't have played music or taken a picture. And today, like, it does slide in my back pocket. In my industry, we still make a shirt and a shoe the exact same way. And I look at that and say, I think that's crazy. And I look and say, if we are gonna make those kind of jobs, and we're gonna create 250,000 more jobs, are you telling me that 1,000 of them can't come back to Baltimore? 5,000 can't go to Philly, can't go to Cincinnati, can't go to the Rust Belt in our country. Like, I think it should be incumbent on us. So when my competition talks about great innovation being a new knit upper in a shoe, I honestly roll my eyes and I say, I think they've been lazy and they've been sitting on their heels, and it's taken a disruptor like Under Armour to come along, and I don't know if we will be the ones that will crack the code and find the answer, but I sure as heck hope we start the conversation.
All right, well, let's get to your guys' questions.
I felt that one. I felt that one.
Let's get to your guys' questions. This is from Merrill. As Under Armour continues to grow, what's your hiring strategy and challenges you face in the technology space?
It's tough, you know. You guys are really expensive, like this whole technology space. Engineers are tough to come by. You know, I really feel good about our team. You know, I think leadership is so important, and I'm so thrilled to be able to claim that of the 3, you know, acquisitions that we made, you know, all 3, you know, founding partners or parties are all still, you know, a part of and believing in the vision and the mission. And I think that was so important about the decision we made of getting into connected fitness, was finding entrepreneurs that really believed, I think, in what we could do to, I keep using the words, but to enrich lives. Like, how do we help? Like, Mike and Albert Lee didn't sell to Under Armour because it was just a financial transaction. Of course, that was an important part of it, but it was as much about the belief of what we could do to scale and elevate what they had started. And I think that's going to consistently be a challenge for us as we look to find that kind of entrepreneurial grit, is because, as I mentioned earlier, being a big little company, a little big company, I think we're at that tweener stage right now. And whether we make the jump or not, it remains to be seen. And it's incumbent on us, and it's incumbent on all of us, is that, you know, we have 14,000 people in our company now, and, you know, claiming like we're all going to be entrepreneurs. Like, I really mean that. Like, I really want my company to be entrepreneurs. But the way that happens is that it's got to be led. And, you know, that starts with myself. And like, a cool thing, I don't know for the leaders in here, but, you know, I end every Under Armour meeting the exact same way. I end with 3 basic statements. Here's what I think, here's what I heard, and here's what we're going to do. And I usually start with here's what I heard. And the first thing is because anybody is, you know, participating, they want to know that they've got a voice. And I think that our job is to make sure that voice is really, you know, exploded in our meetings. Secondly, it's to tell you that I've got a point of view as well, and I'm seeing it from a big purview. Like, I get to see the whole company. And I want to tell you what I think, and based on what you said and based on what I said, somebody's got to call the play. And that's where we say, here's what we're going to do. But we walk out of meetings not scheduling the next meeting. We walk out of meetings typically with a point of view and a plan, and that begins with our digital strategy, and we need really smart people. So we've got about 170 people here now. Robin said we can fit up to 210 people there, so we're accepting applications.
So there's 40 jobs open.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's 40 seats open. I think we could jam more people in there if we had to and bring back that entrepreneurial startup.
So the next question was, what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur and wearable tech startup?
I'm a big believer, you know, I'm very proud of our track record. I'm very proud of 30% since being public, 30% top line growth and 30% bottom line growth. I think profitability is one of the most undersold. I think it's so important. You know, I was at a tech conference. I was at a conference last week, and it really bothered me. One of the presenters on stage, I don't know if it happened here, but they were talking about their company, and it was like 4 entrepreneurs, and like, you know, 2 of them were profitable and 2 of them weren't. And they were like making jokes about the lack of profitability, and they were saying like, you know, we're still one of those companies that's still burning right now, ha, ha, ha. And the crowd kind of like chuckled with it too, and I'm going, what are you doing? Like, I talk about culture, like winning is cultural. Like, losing money is cultural. Like, it's a habit. And if you get used to losing money, it's really hard to stop. When you get used to like making money, and not for some greedy capitalistic way, but you're doing it for your people, you're doing it for your college funds, you're doing it for your kids. Like, go like let the other guy lose and fail often for his company. You go win for yours. So like, if I have advice for an entrepreneur today, like, go find out if your product can sell. Like, get out of the hypothesis mode. Get out of like, maybe I think, you know, I've tweeted, like, we'll see how it works. Like, get into like, is someone willing to take hard, cold cash out of their pocket, and whatever good or service you have, exchange it for what you have and make the transaction. Go make the sale, and don't forget to ask for the sale.
All right, yeah, this next question is from a fan. If Tom Head is here, clearly he loves you. He wants to know what you're most proud of when you look back at all you've achieved.
First of all, thank you very much. You know, again, it's a huge deal to be here. And when you guys were watching the commercial, I was taking pictures of the crowd too, like, this is awesome. So, you know, like, I'm still pinching myself. I think it's, you know, it feels amazing. And if I had to pick, you know, a few things of, you know, as far as Under Armour is concerned, like, I got a killer team. You know, and like, it sounds like cliche. And again, when I used to tell you, like, oh, I understand culture, I'd nod my head at, like, it being about the team. Like, one of the core things it says on my whiteboards in the center, it says, make great product. It's like, I call them they're the 4 principles of Under Armour. There are our pillars. Make great product, tell a great story, service our business, and build a great team. And like, it's the anchor, like, it's everything to our company, you know? And like, they're in that order because, first of all, like, no matter what, like, if we screw everything else up, as long as we have a really good product, at some level you'll be okay. Like, where I want to be expert is we're really good at telling our story, communicating what it is, like explaining to the world, oh my gosh, nobody's developed, and looking at this market opportunity and saying, nobody's fixed a sweaty, soaking wet cotton t-shirt underneath your uniform. Like, why not? Look at the size of this market opportunity. And servicing the business is like all the get the stuff there, logistics, the most expensive thing in a store is an empty fixture, you know, find a way. And fourth and most importantly, it's building a great team. So I look back every day and I tell you, it's a team that's evolved. You know, we've moved, and like, people like with me or anything else I've been doing it 20 years. I haven't left. My original partner, Kip, is still there. And you know, the two of us, like, we get on, and we've had, you know, years like this and years like this. And some people have left. Some people, like, they've outgrown the business, or the business has outgrown them. Some people have gotten tired. Some people have gotten wealthy, and good for them. Some people are like, dude, if I hear you tell that grandma's basement story one more time, like, I'm gonna jump out of a building. So it's like, you know, I'm not gonna stop telling the story, I guess, at the point. So you leave, I'm not going anywhere, so.
All right, this question's from Helen Todd. It's a nice question. What's your daily routine? How do you structure your day?
Yeah. I like to start my day with exercise and make sure I get credit for it on my Under Armour record app. That's but first, I check and see, like, how much I slept. I'm not a big sleeper, so like.
You maybe step on the scale and weigh yourself?
Every morning. So, but I mean, imagine that data. Like, talk about frictionless. Like, I get up in the morning, I roll over, I see how much I slept. You know, I walk in the restroom, I step on my scale, I see what I weigh, and that usually drives, like, whether I'm going to go exercise or not. Is what the scale says. But you are, you know, you're measuring these things, like, for the first time for many people. And then I wake up at like 6. I'm in the gym by 6:30 in the morning. I exercise from 6:30 to 7:30. Then I go, like, wrestle my kids. I've got a 12-year-old boy and a 9-year-old little girl, which are like the best things ever. And then you know, take them off to school, and I'll go get showered up and cleaned up. I'm in the office by probably 9 o'clock, and unfortunately, I still work to probably 8 or 9 o'clock too. So I'm working on that and getting better at it.
You were telling me a story before, though. You don't sleep very much. You were telling me a story about texting with someone at 11 at night, and then at 1 in the morning, and then again at 5:30. Like, are you working all the time? Are you up all the time? Are you always on?
I mean, you hear you know, I've never worked, people that never work a day in their life. So it's like the best part of my job are these unbelievably, like, cool people that I get to interact or mix with. So one of them, I got, someone introduced me to General Colin Powell, who I think is one of the greatest Americans, let alone, you know, human beings on the planet. And I found myself in this dialogue with General Powell, and it was like the first time we were talking, I was trying to impress him, and we were speaking at night, we were going back and forth on email, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and then he responded like at 9:30, and then I responded like at 10, he responded like at 10:15, then I responded at like 11, and then I responded again at like 1, and then I responded again at like 2, and then, like, he wrote me a response to my email to him at like 5:30 in the morning. And I'm a short sleeper, and I happened to sleep short that night, and I woke up, and I sat there, and I wrote him back, and I was like, kind of like, haha, you know, General, I'm still here and still answering you. And like, only in like the sage way, like a really good director would give you perspective. He just said to me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, I learned like my first week in the Army that someone taught me a very important lesson. Never stand when you can sit, never sit when you can lay down, and never stay awake when you can sleep. Like, quit being such a hero. Like, go figure it out. And it was like one of those like human things about, you know, what happens with your life. So I encourage you all, like, I'm not a big advocate of sleep if you're starting a business, but I think if you can, take it when you can get it.
So I want to ask you just a couple of questions. We're almost out of time, but there's a child of one of my coworkers, 7-year-old boy, who is an avid Under Armour fan. Every time I see him, he's dressed in Under Armour from head to toe.
Superpowers, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so he had a couple of questions that he wanted me to ask you. So if I can ask you this. His first question was, where did the name Under Armour come from?
That's a pretty good one. So I was like, what I'm great at is if I have a good skill, like I can tell you if something will be commercial or not. But I'm good at like tying all the stuff together and bringing it all together. So I first wanted to call the company. I had a friend who worked at the Patent and Trademark Office who was doing all the searches for me. So the first idea, I was going to call the company Heart. Like, do you have heart? Do you wear heart on your sleeve? Like, this is it. I'm like, got this product concept, like bing, bang, I'm done. Search goes out, comes back, says you'll never get heart through, way too generic. So then I came up with the perfect name. I was going to call it Body Armor. And like, same thing, like I'm terrible with a secret. So as soon as I come up with the name Body Armor, I start telling everybody that I know, I'm going to call the company Body Armor. This is it. It's perfect. Don't keep the secret. Search goes out. It takes about 2 weeks for search. This is 1996. And the search comes back. And my buddy calls me and says, I got bad news for you. He said, what's that? He said, your company Body Armor. He goes, there's like two ballistic vest companies. There's like a body shop in New Jersey. Like, this thing will never get through. You can't use the word body armor. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, shaking my head, thinking, this stinks. This is terrible. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. I was actually going out to have lunch with my oldest brother, who was an architect. And I walked to his office. I opened the door, and I'm standing in the front door. And I said, hey, you ready to go to lunch? He's like, yeah, give me a second. And only the way that an older brother can sort of like shoot it at a younger brother. And he says he was intentional with it, so he was intentional with it, I'm sure. And he just says, hey, how's that thing you're working on? What do you call it? Under Armour. And I'm like, stop the presses. I can't do lunch. Like, I got to go back to the office, fill out the paperwork, faxed it over. Trademark came back free and clear. We got the 8884 Armour number, and which is why we spell it ARMOUR, is because our options were either 88844 ARMOR or 4 ARMOUR, because in '96, who knew how long this whole internet thing was going to last anyway? So anyway, it worked out. So we've been lucky.
Okay. It's good to have family. All right, I have one last question I'll ask you. It'll be quick and easy from this 7-year-old, and he wants to know, what's your favorite color?
That's awesome. Like, I'm a Terp. So I'm a Maryland Terrapin, so I'll pick the red and black of the Maryland Terrapin.
The red and black. All right.
Red, black, and gold, the Maryland flag. So that's my colors.
Well, Kevin, this was great. We could keep you here all afternoon, but our time is up. Thanks very much for doing this.
Thank you guys very much.
Really
Good luck in your business.
Thank you.